Welcome back. We're staying with the big story, that is the coal situation in the country and the power shortage. Those deficits, I mean, at least the peak shortage that's come down, that's what Anshu was just telling us. Let's find out what's happening with the coal availability front. Tushar Shah, Director at Care Advisory and Research, is with us. Tushar, thanks for joining in. You know, our colleagues have been telling us that there's a lot of effort, obviously, to ramp up coal output, though there's still a shortfall. Give us your numbers and your sense of the situation. For how long do you think this is going to last?
Sure. So I think from a numbers perspective, what is reflecting is a clear growth in terms of production as well as dispatch. So there is a growth in terms of the production that happened during the year till the point in time that we are discussing. So for the first 6 months, there is a growth. So the production by Coal India was around 250 million tons. Singareni collieries produced around 30 million ton, and the captive mines have produced around 36 million ton. This is April to September 2021. Now this is a clear growth with respect to what was done in FY21, as well as if we look at the pre-COVID year of FY20. So while we will say that last year was artificially depressed because of the event, but if we look at FY19, even then the production has indeed ramped up, albeit at a slower pace. The key reasons, what we attribute to that is monsoons which have continued, which have not really helped in increasing the production. We expect that as the monsoon recedes, some of these ramp up in production will happen further. So that's on the production numbers.
Okay. Okay, Tushar, hi, good afternoon. So that's on the production numbers, but can you help us with who are the biggest beneficiaries of the higher coal prices that we've seen? Of course, you know, a lot of these companies in the power sector, you know, they've spoken to us about how the coal shortage and, you know, the kind of impact that it has on prices, for example. But according to you, who are the biggest beneficiaries?
So, when we look at the coal sector, what we are talking about is end user industries. Now, a lot of those industries will have passed through. Some of them will have to absorb prices. From a coal production perspective, if you look at it domestically, it is still the PSU companies which dominate. When you look at beneficiaries, if you're looking at companies which have exposure to imported coal, in terms of having share in some of those productions or having ownership in some of those international coal assets, is something, because what we are seeing in terms of trend is a rising international coal prices. But beyond that, in terms of what really how much of it manifests directly in terms of cash flows is something which is to be seen, because prices of coal are different for different geographies. What comes out dispatched to different geographies, all of them have a lot of element of subjectivity there.
Okay. Tushar, would you have a view on where prices could head internationally when it comes to coal? It's currently at around 240. It's off the highs that we saw earlier in October at around 269, 270. Where do you expect it to go, considering it's gone up around 170% this year already?
Correct. So I think this is significant, but if you see in terms of the overall energy basket, I think the prices all across the resources like oil, gas, crude, as well as coal, all of them are on an uptrend. Prima facie, from a house view, if you are to ask where do we see it stopping to increase, I would say that we don't really would forecast or hazard a guess on prices, energy prices per se. In terms of trend, obviously it's an increasing trend, and it has increased at a very fast pace, largely because of the way the economies across the world have ramped up in terms of their demand. So all of this, a lot of it is fueled by the power demand that you see in the country as well as globally. So the situation that you see in terms of as the economies come back from the pandemic-driven lockdowns, shutdowns, there is rampant demand, and that is leading to some of these energy prices reflecting that demand-supply mismatch.
Okay. Just a quick last question from my end. Given
Sure.
the elevated global prices, I mean, there are Indian players that do have mining assets overseas, GMR, I mean, we know the Carmichael mine for Adani's as well. So are you expecting the international price tightness to last? Or should some of these Indian players perhaps expect windfall gains, at least in the near term?
So, as I said, it would specifically depend on what kind of contracts some of these players would have in terms of fixed price, or at what rates do you deliver the coal that you have, or the ownership benefit that you have because of your ownership in some of these mines in Indonesia, in Australia, or otherwise. As we understand, Australia and Indonesia are the two countries which are the biggest importers. And India is one of the largest, they are the exporters, and India is one of the largest importers for its requirements. So definitely assets or companies with assets in those geographies are likely to have the benefit of inflated prices. Notwithstanding, one will have to look at whether they have fixed price contracts with their customers, what kind of prices change in their real deliveries. Because if there are long-term contracts and commitments, one would have to still abide by the same. So now, with all of those, obviously one will have to really take a look at it in terms of how much windfall can come in.
Okay, all right, Tushar, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much for joining in and giving us your perspective. Well, that's on the whole coal situation, but we really need to look at what's happening with IT at this point in time. Just look at HCL Tech, low point of the day. Stock is actually quite pressured post the TCS numbers. You have to put the gains into context and the fall into context as well. Remember, the stock is up around 31% on a year-to-date basis, but numbers come out